So I was thinking for today I would work through this Division 3 contest. Um, the one that I already have up, I guess. And if anyone has any um, ideas or topic suggestions or anything they'd like me to cover or a problem you'd like me to work on, just shout it out in the chat and I'll try to take a look at that or try to speak to that topic a little bit. Um, But for now, in the absence of any other suggestions, I think I'll just do these random problems and then, kind of, yeah, see where we go from there. Um, and as always, definitely feel free to ask any questions or say anything that comes to mind. Cool. So I guess I got started on A. Also, is the font pretty like readable? Um, Everything's clear. I think last stream things were a little fuzzy, but hopefully I fixed it since then. So let me know in the chat. Okay, great. All right, so three friends are going to meet each other. They start at positions A, B, and C. And each friend can move by at most one. And they want to minimize their total pairwise distance. And they can choose to either move or not move. Cool. And they have some examples here. So if you start at 3, 3, 4, then they can all move to point 3. So that's fine. If they start at 10, 20, 30, then they'll move to 11. They'll move to 11, 20, and 29. So they'll get a score of 18. Oh, no. Right. Because it's all three distances, they'll get 9 plus 9 plus 18, which is 36. Cool. So I guess let's So one trick is when you have three variables to input, but the variables are basically the same thing, just use a vector of length 3. That kind of makes their symmetric or their equal status apparent in your code. And let's just sort the points. Since we're probably going to want to move everybody towards the center. Let me disable my... Okay. Now we should not get that hover behavior anymore. Cool. So what we're going to want to do is, for the first point, if it's not larger than the second point, we're going to want to increase it. And the last point, we're always going to want to decrease unless it's already equal to the second point. And the second point, it actually doesn't really matter what we do with it, because either way, it's between the other two. So you're basically going to be taking, you're basically going to take the distance from the first to the last point and then double it. You can kind of see this if you have if you have some distance here and then some other distance here, and you're adding those three distances, it's really the total distance times 2. So we can call that total distance the last element minus the first element. And then we can subtract 2 from it because the first and last points can both move by 1. And then if that makes it negative, then we'll just say that it's 0. It's possible that this could make it negative if, for example, they all start at the same location. And then we'll want to print twice that distance. So hopefully this works. We'll test it on the samples. Cool. We passed the samples, so we can try submitting. Cool. I'll try out the next problem. Let me write in the chat if anyone has any. Great. All right. So for this next problem, it's a grid problem. Very fun. So the robot can move in 4 directions. Makes sense. But the robot needs to start and end at the origin, but it can never visit any other cell twice, and it can never visit the origin more than the beginning and end. And what we're allowed to do is we're allowed to remove some, possibly all of the instructions, and then arrange the remaining instructions. And we have to print the maximum length sequence, and we have to print the sequence itself, not just the length. Cool. So the first observation is, in order to get back to the origin, the number of left and right have to match each other, and the number of up and down also have to match each other. The last, well, not the last, but yeah, the second observation is that as long as you have some vertical and some horizontal, you can go in like a giant square or a giant rectangle, where first you do all the rights, then all the ups, then all the lefts, then all the downs, and you'll never cross the same cell twice. If you only have horizontal or you only have vertical, then you always have to cross a cell twice unless you only go right once and left once, or, up and down just once. But if you go a distance of more than 1 and then go back, then you're going to end up retracing your steps, which is illegal. And because we just have to count them, or because we can order them however we want, we just have to count the oh, that's weird. Okay, sorry. We just have to count the number of each type. So strings. As a good practice, I just like to define constants so that I don't accidentally type one of these. If I type the literal character in with quotes each time, first of all, it's a little more annoying to type, but second of all, I could easily have a typo. I could type it in lowercase, I could type the key next to it, and I just wouldn't notice until I got wrong answer. So let's just count everything. So now we want to count the horizontal things. So that would be the min of count L, count R, because we need those to match. And then the vertical things, which would be the min of count D and count U, because we need those to match. I'll reorder those. Now, so if there's nothing horizontal, then we can use at most one of our vertical things. So I guess we can even do this. Actually, yeah, that's possible. The input can never be of length 0, but these could end up being 0 if, for example, the input was all L's, like as they explained here. I'll just do this in a lambda so I can return early. If h equals 0, then I guess actually then the vertical case, and finally there's the case where we're gonna do the big rectangle. So we're going to do our lefts, and then we're going to do our rights, and then we're also going to want to do our ups and our downs. All right, let's check if that looks reasonable. So I got all the right lengths, and then the answers follow the template that I kind of described out loud. So this should be right. All right. Clearly I made a mistake. Let's. Okay. Yeah, I mixed up this H and V. That actually was pretty careless. Yeah, so I guess the lesson here is, you should always double check things like if you're doing rows and columns, that you don't mix up your rows and columns, or if you're doing. All right, so this one, they only allow Yeah, they don't even have a D in the input, so definitely could have caught that one. Um, cool. I guess let's just submit this. Great. Let's try. Oh, nice. Chosen1. Thanks for the follow. Yeah, actually, secretly, Chosen1 followed 4 minutes ago, but I missed it, so I replayed um the alert so that I could say thanks. What experience do you have in CP and math? So I graduated college a while ago. Um, in middle school and high school, I did a lot of math competitions. I really enjoyed them. And in high school, I learned a bit of programming and did some programming competitions, but I wasn't that, I didn't do that much compared to math and physics, is mostly what I did in high school. Then in college, I majored in math with computer science, so I kept learning math and CS, and I did a few programming competitions. I did the Putnam math competition. And then since then, I've just been working, so I haven't been taking a lot of classes or anything like that, but I picked up competitive programming again last year, and it's been a pretty fun hobby. So I guess that summarizes my experience so far. Um, yeah, definitely fun, and I'm still learning a lot as I go. What about you? What's your CP and math experience? All right, so moving on to the next problem. Um, and by the way, just as a reminder to anyone watching, I'm just working through this Division 3 as kind of a starting point. If people have any other recommendations, feel free to ask, and I'll try my best. All right, so here someone wants to type all substrings of a string. However, their keyboard is broken, so they can only type some of the letters. So basically, the insight here. Let's see if they have it. Okay, this is not readable. um, all right, so we'll look at the first example. So this is the string, um, and it's of length 7. So there are 7. Hold on. Yeah, it's of length 7. So there are 8 choose 2 substrings. So that would be 7 times 8 over 2, which would be 28. But the answer here is only 12. And the reason for this is that our main character here can't type the letter C, which means they can't type any substring that crosses over um, this letter C. So we can even just replace it with a vertical line, or we can add a space instead. So now instead we have the substrings of ABA or of the second ABA. So that would be 3 times 4 over 2 plus the same thing. So I guess times 2, which is 12, as we expect. So basically what we want to do is we want to go through the original, let me read the input. We want to go through the original string, and then we just want to delete all the characters that we don't know how to type. And that's basically it. So let's see. Maybe that's the best way to do it. Can I just read a single character? Probably. I'm pretty new to C++, so I don't actually know how exactly cin's kind of magical parsing works. So I'll test it. I was gonna read a bunch of strings and take their first character. All right, perfect. So one kind of cool trick that we can do is there's this kind of standard loop that people like to write. It's a little long, but basically what this is doing is what it's doing is it's going through and it's expanding our range as long as the all the elements in the range are equal according to some property, which in this case is whether they're allowed. And then our range, and then it allows us to process every range I comma j, just like this. So then so I think this should be right. So what we're doing here is we're only counting the substrings of the valid strings, and the valid strings being where we broke apart the original string um, by splitting it on all the forbidden characters. Cool. Oh, thanks, Varen Ag for the follow. Um, I'll replay that one too. I didn't see it. I should probably get some kind of notification so I can be. Welson Not asks, is Java worth studying? That really depends. Like, what are your goals? Um, what do you like? Why would you want to potentially study Java if you're trying to do competitive programming using Java? Then that sounds fine. If you want to make an app using Java, that sounds fine. Uh, if you don't want to use Java, then don't study it. um, I've done probably more Java coding than any other language, and I think it's like perfectly fine. Um, it's not as good for competitive programming as C++, I'd say, but yeah, it definitely depends what you want to study a programming language for. All right, let's check out this next problem. You're given an array of n integers. Okay, so we can remove elements, but only one element, or 0 elements. And we have to find the maximum strictly increasing contiguous subarray of the remaining array. So, all right, so let's look at one of the examples to try to explain how to do this. So, yeah, I guess, I don't know. None of these examples are that great. I guess I'll just look at the first one to illustrate. So for this array, um, you already have the strictly increasing block 2. Then you have the strictly increasing block 5, and then you have 3, 4. So if you could delete 0 elements, the answer would be 2. You have 2 blocks here of length 2. It turns out you can pick this one element to delete, and then on either side of it, you'll have a strictly increasing block. So then it would be 2 plus 2. The only thing is you need to make sure that these blocks work together. So for example, if you had an array like this, you could delete the 3, but then these two blocks wouldn't actually work together. So that wouldn't help you. So I think actually what you can do is, let's see. So we want a linear runtime. So I think what we can do is we can find the longest, assuming you can't delete any elements, we can just find the longest increasing subarray ending at each element and the longest increasing subarray starting in each element. And then we can consider deleting candidate elements. So we can consider, like, let's say you have a bunch of stuff and then X and then a bunch of stuff. Then we consider deleting X and we find the longest subarray that ends here and the longest subarray that starts here, and then we check whether we can stitch them together. And that should give the correct answer. And with a little simple pre-computation, you can get this to run in time. Oh, Shikabi369, thanks for the follow. Let me know if you have any questions or recommendations about what to solve next. All right, so let's I guess figure out these subarrays. So what we want to do is, oh, sorry, here's the best way to do it. So first, let's make a function that only does it for the prefixes. So what we want to do here is the maximum answer ending on the first element is gonna be 1. And then what we can do is we can go through each element after that. We can say if AI is greater than AI minus 1, then we can add 1. Otherwise, sorry, we can add 1 to our previous maximum length and then add that to the end of our array. Or we'll have to start over, so we'll just add the single element 1. So what we want to do here now is so this way we didn't have to write the same code twice, just to, you know, do the same thing going both left and right. The important thing to note is that the right array is going to be reversed. So we can also reverse that. And we can test this out by printing the output just to check that it matches our expectations. It's actually a little weird. Okay, I think there's just some small problem with my build script. Okay. So what we have here is 6 is just an array by itself. 5 is just an array by itself, so it's 1. Okay. Actually, this was wrong because when I reverse the array, I actually reverse, maybe this isn't really worth doing like this, but I could also negate all the elements. um, I don't know. It's not that hard to just write this twice going in both directions, but it's kind of nice to not have to. But now right has a negative answer. Oh, this should be answer.back. Okay, no wonder. Yo, you're streaming again. Yes. Yeah, so right now I'm just working through this Division 3 contest. Codeforces round 605. Um, I'll also take this time to plug my YouTube. You should subscribe there if you want to see these videos and possibly other videos like later, not live. But yeah, and if anybody has any recommendations or requests for particular problems to look at or topics to solve a problem in, um, please feel free. Yeah, so just to check this, we have these are all 1, which makes sense because these all can't be part of a larger increasing sequence. Then this is 2 because you have 2, 4. This is 1 again because you just have 3. And then going to the right, you have 3, 4, and then 2, 4 is valid. Oh, yeah, that's very kind. I definitely enjoy writing ABC editorials. It's nice to get a chance to try to like write up like a clean explanation of a bunch of things. Um, I only get to do it sometimes, of course, because sometimes I don't wake up in time to do the beginner contest, or sometimes I don't even solve all the problems, or sometimes I'm just busy. But it's definitely nice to post them. It's almost kind of cool that AtCoder doesn't have. I mean, okay, it definitely would be better if they just had English editorials, but it's kind of cool that they don't have Do you have, okay, a lot of questions. Do you have a Git? Just watching someone practice sounds kind of interesting. Don't think anyone does it. Not sure if you do any dedicated practice. Do you have a GitHub or is your vimrc public? Cool. I guess I'll answer all those in order. So yeah, about the AtCoder editorials. It's kind of cool that they don't have English, just because it's a little fun to it's a little fun for me to get the chance to write some editorials, whereas I'm never really going to write an editorial for a Codeforces round because they already have one. Watching someone practice sounds interesting. What do you mean by practice? I guess like right now I'm practicing, but I'm also mixing that in with some explanations instead of like just purely practicing. Um, like if I were purely practicing, I would be using pen and paper, which, would be pretty annoying to you guys because you won't be able to see anything. Infinite Loop, thanks for the follow. Do I do dedicated practice? Sometimes I try to make a concerted effort to learn some new algorithm, but mostly I solve problems for fun, which is a form of practice, but it's not really super dedicated. I don't have like a one huge contest in my future that I'm training towards the way that some people do with ICPC or IOI or something like that. I'm just doing ongoing things. Is a Div 3 contest really still practice for you? Um, well, yeah, I guess the thing is, I don't want to solve problems that are too hard on stream. The reason for that being that it would just be really slow paced and boring. Like I would just sit here and think for like an hour and it would be like, I don't know, you would get to see me, but there wouldn't really be much going on. Uh so yeah, I'm just if these problems are too easy for like most of the viewers, and it's not interesting, definitely let me know. Um, but I feel like there's kind of this sweet spot where I'm explaining something that's kind of interesting, but on the flip side, it's not like, if I tried to solve late problems from a Div 1, we might be sitting here for 2 hours while I do one problem, uh, which would be a little slow paced for a stream. And for the question of do I have a GitHub? Yes, I do. There isn't really, so my vimrc is kind of just some stuff I have like cobbled together. I would definitely recommend that if you're using Vim to kind of find what plugins you enjoy and then use those. Maybe I'll find the time to post my vimrc on GitHub as a gist or something. Um, I also do have a GitHub. I posted the link in the chat. It has all my C++ templates, which if you're observant, you'll notice this forked from. I'll just put it here. You'll notice this forked from. So this is the real author, and I've just made a couple small modifications. And then I actually have a whole Java library that I actually did write, basically completely by myself, but I don't use it anymore because I don't use Java for competitive programming anymore. um, but yeah, I more or less don't really use GitHub much. Um, oh, cool! Somebody posted a problem. Let me check it out. Distinct characters. I'll open the problem here. Actually, I'll wrap up this current problem. It shouldn't be too long. I'll try to speed through it and then I'll try to get to this problem. So definitely stay tuned for that. All right, so back to our regularly scheduled programming. Um, so Yeah, so what we want to do is at this point, the answer is definitely going to be more than 0, so we can initialize it to 0, and then, take the max over and over from there. So now, actually, let's initialize it to the maximum element of left. So, oh, whoops, I need to say all. Okay, so the reason that we want to do this is because we want to consider the case where we don't delete anything. For example, for the second input test case where you just output the whole array. Cool. So now we're going to try each candidate deletion. So there's no point in deleting something if it's not at the very big if it's at the very beginning or the very end, you're not actually deleting anything. So these are candidate deletions. So what we want to do is we want to say if ai minus 1 is less than ai plus 1, then so what we want to do here is, as we described before, we want to consider each candidate element, which would be ai, to delete. And then we want to check whether we can connect stuff on the left to stuff on the right. So that's checking if this pair is valid. And then we're checking how much stuff we're connecting on each side to get the length of our answer. So awesome, let's submit that. See what happens. And then, all right, great, accepted. All right, distinct characters queries. Yeah, so Shikabi, or yeah, I hope you're looking. So let's see. By the way, out of curiosity, if you could just list why you suggested this problem, I'd definitely be interested to hear. You don't have to, of course, but if it's a problem that you've been working on, or you think it illustrates something cool, or anything, it'll just be cool to know the context, and then it might help me inform how I choose problems in the future. All right, so we're given a string s. All right, yeah, so they're using contiguous substrings here, as they're reminding us. And we want to replace. Okay, so we want to modify. Wait a second. Hmm. Okay. So this problem definitely seems pretty challenging. Um, it seems like we have a pretty complex query, and not only do we have to do multiple queries, but we also have to update the string. I'm using segment tree and getting it wrong. Cool. So definitely interested to hear how you're using a segment tree. If you want to outline your approach or paste your submission in the chat, I might be able to take a look. I'm not sure if I want to debug someone else's submission on stream, just because it might be a little slow, but could definitely take a quick look. But for now, I'll try to just outline my thought process and outline my approach to this problem. Whoops. What the heck? Oh, I see. Um, okay, cool. Cool. I was just downloading the samples. Um, okay, so I think the idea of using a segment tree, or a Fenwick tree or a set is definitely the way to go. I think, yeah, I think a Fenwick tree or a set would both be completely fine. Um, I'll try implementing it with a Fenwick tree to start with. So the key idea here is that I'm actually not sure how I would do this problem if the characters, instead of having lowercase letters, which there are only 26 of conveniently, if instead they had like arbitrary integers from 1 to 10 to the fifth, then I'm not sure off the top of my head how to do this, but I think that because the total number of letters is so small, we can just process each letter almost completely separately, and that'll still run like in time. Um, cool. So we'll yeah, there aren't that many. Yeah, exactly. As Neil said, the key idea is there aren't that many different characters. Um, so we can basically reduce this problem to put it another way. Imagine the problem is given a binary string, count the number of um, determine whether there's a one at all in a given range, or flip any bit. So the idea with that would be you basically solve that problem 26 times. First, you solve it for the A's. So you say, is there an A in this range or not? Then you solve it for the B's and you say, is there a B in this range or not? And then you just add up those numbers, right? And then if you think about it that way, it becomes kind of clear the answer will be at most 26. And that is kind of also obvious because it's the number of distinct characters. So, this approach makes sense. Um, and just for my convenience, I'm going to store the elements. I'll do this. I'm going to store the elements as integers from 0 to 25. Just because I think that's a little simpler. Cool. Cool. Yeah, that's how I wanted to store the input. So let's see how this binary index tree class even works. So I think there's another approach using sets, which is also quite clean, but I'll do it this way to start out with. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set that location to 1 in the relevant binary index tree or Fenwick tree. So for example, for the first input, where we have A, B, A, C, A, B. That's funny. That string showed up in a previous problem I did on this stream as the first sample. So for A, it'll look something like this, and then for B, it'll look like this, and then for C, it'll look like this. And then we can query each of the A's, B's, and C's just completely separately. So, second. Okay. Yeah, let's read the queries in up here. I'm just using query because, I'm never going to use that variable again. And then we want to, this is going to be the type. If t equals 1 int I car c. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to get our new value. So then what we're going to do is we're going to delete the old value, then we're going to put in the new value, and then we're going to set the new value. And then if t equals 2, we're just going to get the bounds. And then working with closed intervals is annoying, so I like to work with half open intervals, like LR like this. So, and also I want things to be 0 indexed, actually. So I should do I minus minus. And then here I'll do L minus minus, but I won't do R minus minus. So that way they become half open. And then so basically this line here that I've highlighted is telling us, does there exist at least one of this thing V, which could be A, B, C, up to Z, in our answer, or sorry, in our range. So then it would contribute 1 to the number of distinct elements. All right. This should be fun. Time to... I've been blessed with good luck at not running into segfaults recently, except when I'm on stream. Sliced mushroom, thanks for the follow. Definitely one of my top pizza toppings. Out of bounds index 1. Are you serious? What? Oh, I see. Yeah. So my mistake here is I didn't actually create the binary indexed trees. Like I just created a bunch of empty ones with size 0, which I don't want. So I guess I can do this to initialize them at like an appropriate. Okay, cool. Yeah, just a little C++ gotcha. All right. So I'll try submitting that. So I think overall this is a pretty like simple, clean solution. It runs in time. Did that make sense? Um, to the person who asked about the problem, or would any additional? Let me know if you have any questions or if any additional exposition would be useful. Um, just for the sake of exposition, I was actually thinking it might be nicer to do this with a set rather than yeah, I thought it might be nicer to do this with a set rather than a oh, I guess maybe not. So instead of using a binary index tree, I was thinking of using either a set or an order statistics tree. Because we only want to check if something exists. We don't really care that much about counting the number. So the idea here would be to do this. This is gonna get me. Cool. I didn't fall for that. Cool. So the other way to do this is via a set instead of a binary index tree. This is like, it's all right either way, but if you don't have code pre-written for a segment tree or a Fenwick tree, then it's nice to use sets because they're just built into, um, they're just built into the language. I guess erase is how you remove things. Great, so here we're using the set to kind of maintain the list of indices that exist. And then what we want to do here is we want to do sets v dot lower bound. Let's figure out what this actually does. I actually don't know what it does if you don't like find anything. Sharky Boy says hello. Hello. Yeah, glad you're with us. Does lower bound return end? Okay, yeah, cool. Someone confirmed that they think it points to end as well. So what we would do here is so what we're doing here, and this might be a little bit trickier to follow than the Fenwick tree, or maybe it's more intuitive. So let's say we have the letter A at the following indices 3, 6, 7, 9, 10. And we want to find everything between 2 and 8. So what we would do is we would find lower bound of 2, which is 3, and we'd confirm that this is less than, I guess I'll make that a half open range. And this is less than 8, which means that there exists stuff in that range. And there is. There's 3, 6, 7. But then if we did something like from 4 to 5, then we would get lower bound 4. Oops. Lower bound of 4 is equal to 6. And 6 is actually greater than 5. So that means it's out of the range. So there is nothing in the range 4 to 5. Yeah, so we can also try submitting this. It's a little nicer, right? Because we don't have to. Oh, thanks, Def Not Hacking, for the follow. Hopefully you, hopefully you do hack during Codeforces rounds. Wow, so this is actually quite a bit slower, which I guess surprised me a little bit. I am surprised that this was quite a bit slower. I thought it would be basically the same speed. I don't have a great intuition for C++ constant factor stuff. Um, However, this took 400 milliseconds. Set lower bound is actually really slow. That's so weird. I feel like that's like all you want to do with sets, you know? Like, what's the point of a set if lower bound is slow? Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess sets and Fenwick trees are both like log n runtime for these types of operations, but sets probably have a worse constant factor because they're like trees instead of just in a very nice compact array like Fenwick trees. All right, cool. Um, yeah, but that's kind of that for this problem. I guess you can also look at the editorial, just see if they said anything interesting. Oh, cool. So they did it with set. Um, wow, this looks extremely familiar. Anyways, cool. Does anyone else have any problem ideas or topic ideas? If not, I'll continue with this div 3. Um, or maybe not. Maybe I'll try to find something interesting. I'll look in problem set. I just started learning data structures. Any tips? Um, Great question, and thanks for the follow. So I assume you're learning data structures for competitive programming. If so, I'd recommend you learn like basic data structures, but you don't have to worry too much about learning advanced data structures until you're pretty advanced, I guess. Like the most important thing is your problem solving ability. Especially lately, I feel like, and especially on AtCoder, even more so than Codeforces. But even on Codeforces lately, problems haven't been necessarily that data structure heavy. The most important thing is just having strong problem solving skills and practicing. And if you practice, and then when you encounter a new data structure that you're not familiar with in the course of practicing, what do you mean by advanced data structures? That's a great question. Um, I guess like it definitely depends on your rating. What what are your? I mean, if you guys do code forces, C1 and C2 on the past global round. Yeah, that's a good example of a to OJ ladders. C1 and C2 is a good example of a problem that was very difficult but didn't require any advanced data structures. Um, yeah, I guess if you're a Java developer for your job, um, do you do any competitive programming at all? Uh, my experience, at least, has been typically in industry, you don't need to know too many data structures at all. For the most part, you are doing things with more organizational complexity or like a large scale system. Um, oh, interesting. Just out of curiosity, Def Not Hacking, how did you find this stream? Because I think most of my viewers are from Codeforces, where my stream is promoted in the sidebar. Um, I'll link Codeforces in the chat. Um, but yeah, I kind of assumed that most of all of my viewers did a lot of competitive programming. But um, yeah, so I guess to rewind a little and answer D1V11's question about data structures, and to answer your question about advanced data structures, I think um, I think for competitive programming, the most important thing to do is to learn the basic data structures that already exist in your programming language, like arrays, sets, maps, things like that. And then, learn some standard algorithms and concepts like dynamic programming, sorting. Uh, but then, for the most part, the problems are mostly about like your reasoning. Um, for example, this snow walking robot problem that we did, uh, the solution was basically just some if statements and for loops after you think through the problem. But if you didn't think through the problem, then it wouldn't really be possible to solve in the appropriate runtime. And oh, that's really cool that you discovered this through Twitch itself. That's awesome to hear. Thanks. uh, but yeah, and definitely the most important thing to learn as well from the algorithm side is learning how to analyze the runtime of your program. It's something that I kind of gloss over a lot just because at this point it's almost like second nature or like implicit. But for example, for this problem, we see that n goes up to 2 times 10 to the fifth. So if we had an n squared algorithm, that would be like, approximately 4 times 10 to the 10th. And my rule of thumb is that I want to get 10 to the 8th operations or fewer in order to run in a second or two. So that tells me right off the bat that, if I have an algorithm that's n squared, it's not going to pass. But if I have an algorithm that's O of n, it'll almost certainly pass. So I would say to learn that and then learn the built-in data structures in your programming language. And then from there, like, I don't know, union find is sometimes useful. Segment trees are sometimes useful, as in this problem, though you could also just do it with a set. Um, yeah. And then there's a website, CP Algorithms, that has a pretty quick. Let's see. It has some basic data structures here, though. Though even here, like you can kind of tell how few data structures are really important until like the highest level, because even going through this kind of like they had this small list, and I've like never used like the second half of that list ever. um as a corporate developer, runtime is super important. Yeah. Runtime is super important because, as you said, if you're working at a big corporation, you're gonna have millions or billions of things to process. Um, but in my experience, the typically you're using frameworks and libraries that already handle this stuff pretty efficiently. So it's less like do it yourself compared to um, compared to doing competitive programming. Like there's there's more random stuff to learn for competitive programming that's you're mostly just learning it for recreational purposes. Heisenberg 69 underscore 69. Thanks for the follow. Um, but yeah, I guess if anybody has any other example problems or topics, I'd be happy to try to find a problem in one of those and work through it. Otherwise, I think I'll tackle this next problem, nearest opposite parity. Wait, did you do Yusuko as a high schooler? Yes. So I graduated high school in 2010, and I did do Yusuko before that. Maybe some DP problem. I got one. Okay. I guess I'll click on all of these. Okay. Um, all right. So Chosun1 actually linked a DP problem at the same time that Shekabi asked for a DP problem. So that's actually really great. Let me check that this link thing works. Okay, great. So yeah, I'll try to approach this problem. Hopefully, hopefully we have some good insights here. But yeah, to answer the question, I did do Yusuko. At the time that I did Yusuko, actually Platinum didn't exist. I did Yusuko Gold, and I was okay, but I wasn't the best. All right, so for this problem, given a sequence of n positive integers. Okay, so we're finding the number of non-empty subsets of another set. Hang on, this is a little confusing. All right, so given a set, we have to consider a subset of that, which they call T, and then we have to consider a subset of that. I guess let's call it U, so that the sum of the elements, or I guess they called it X, so I'll say that. The sum of the elements in X has to be equal to our target. Oh. Okay, so this is pretty cool. So this is like I think a pretty interesting like counting problem. All right, let me just download the input for this problem so I can get started on it, and I'll just type some notes in here. So, all right, let's just look at their example to try to get a little intuition about the problem. So basically what we want to do is find for each t, which is a sub, I'm going to use this as the subset. As the subset symbol. We want to count x subset of t. Okay. So what's kind of cool is we can reframe this. First, we can count x, then count t, for each x. Okay. So here's a rephrasing of the problem. And this is pretty nice because then what we can do Okay, so what we want to do is we want to count the number of sets with each number of elements. And then for each of those, as the inner set, this x, all the other elements that we're not even using, we can just choose to include them or not include them. So let's see if we can solve this problem of finding for each number k, how many sets x sum up to our target value s. What testing software are you using? Um, I'm using just a simple Python script that like runs, like just compiles and runs it on each of the test cases, and then it checks whether the input and output are equal to just these samples. Cool. All right. All right. So how do we actually do this? Maybe there's a better way. Oh, this hover thing is a little annoying. What is RE in C++? So RE is actually a function that I have predefined here. But basically it's just the same as cin. So I could replace this with cin and s, which would read n and s. But I just prefer using RE because it has some convenient overloads for, like if I'm reading a vector, it'll read each element of the vector in order. Cool. So what we want to do here is, all right, so let's consider the first DP that comes to mind. So the first thing we could do is typically when you have an array like this and you want to consider um, counting the number of ways to do something, what you can do is you can consider counting the number of ways to do something using every prefix of the array and then adding one element to the array and seeing how that changes things. So here we want to find the number of ways to add up to any arbitrary sum using any arbitrary number of elements. So we can define, oh, and we want to use modular arithmetic here. So I'll just use this mod num library. So here we're going to have a dpi j is the number of ways to add dpij is going to be the number of ways to add I elements to get a sum of exactly j using the elements that we have so far. And then we're going to loop through. Oh, I need to read my input array. So now we're gonna we have our next array. So this will definitely not run in time, by the way, because the way that we're doing this here, we're going to end up doing. So this is just for kind of starting out the problem illustrative purposes of how you could start to approach the DP for this. The reason that this won't run in time is because I'm going to loop through all 3,000 elements of A, and then I'm going to do something with this two-dimensional array where each dimension could be up to 3,000. So what this means is our runtime would be like 3,000 cubed, which is too big. So we're going to try each number of elements. And wait a second. Yeah, okay, cool. Int j equals 0, j. I guess we can do this. So we never want to go over s because that's kind of useless to us because we can never go back below s. And this is pretty convenient because our sums could be super high, but we only care about the sums that are less than 3,000 because all our values here are positive. So if we go over 3,000, we're not going to be able to make it back. So that limits our kind of solution or search space. So what we would do here is we would do so I'm copying DP here because we could just not use our latest element and then we could do whatever we could have done before. So, and then here we're gonna do this. So this is if we have I elements that add up to j, and then we're adding a single element that's has value x. Now we have I plus 1 elements that add to j plus x. And then here we'll just swap next in DP. And now, yeah, I definitely, I don't always use Vim, but I try to use Vim key bindings whenever I can because I just find them super convenient. If you use any other editor, right, like IntelliJ or anything like that, with Vim key bindings, I kind of feel like you get the best of both worlds. Um, show vimrc. Yeah, I guess someone else asked about that, so maybe I will. I will very briefly show my vimrc. It's not that interesting. I basically just have some plugins and some basic settings. I might upload it somewhere at some point. I mostly copied it from my friend, so advent of code in 14 minutes. I might take a look. From what I've seen of advent of code, it's a lot of like string parsing. Um, So the problems didn't seem as exciting to me for the style of problem that I like. I kind of like problems like this that are a little bit more mathematical. But if I'm still streaming, then I might try it out if that's something that people would be interested in. So here we're considering each possible number of elements. ZZ. Oh man, it's like that's like the old joke of press Alt F4 and see what happens. Um, yeah, actually here I'm using a GUI version of Vim. I'm using Mac Vim. So what that means is I can also use like normal keyboard shortcuts. Like I still use Command S and like Command C and Command V sometimes when I want to copy into out of Vim. I know I can do the like this whole thing, but I just find it a little more natural to, you know, I have Vim where I can use the mouse too. It's great. Really getting the best of both worlds here. Anyway, so what we're doing here is if we've already used I elements to get to our sum of S, then the remaining elements can either be, so those elements are all going to be in the set X, which means that they're also going to be in the set T. The remaining elements could either all be, or not all, but each of them could be in T or not in T. So what we want to do is, this is the number of remaining elements, and then we want to take 2 to the power of that. Oh, whoops. Whoa, what am I doing? Since the sum can be enormous. Okay. Yeah, okay. Oops. No, sorry. This is the number of remaining elements. Um, we've used I, so we have n minus I. And we also want to multiply by this, which is the number of ways to actually. So this is the number of ways to pick our set X, and this is the number of ways to pick the remaining values of T that aren't in X. So that's kind of following this example. So let's try running this. All right, so clearly I've done something wrong. Oh, I didn't actually print. All right, cool. I didn't print the answer. Hopefully that's the only bug. Okay, I don't know why this is rerunning so many times, but it appears that I'm just printing 0 all the time. So why am I doing that? Oh, I need to initialize. Right, so all my values in DP here are the sum of other values. Yes. Sajnin says you should probably init your DP. Yeah, so for any good DP, you need a base case. So here, I think that would be if you have 0 elements, there's exactly one way to choose 0 or to choose some of them. No, sorry, never mind. There's You can pick 0 elements in one way, and that sum will be 0. So this would be your initialization. Okay, so this passed. However, it's going to be too slow. Oh, I'm not signed into AtCoder. All right. I hope I'm not streaming my password manager. It's on another monitor. Okay, cool. So if I submit this, whoops, yikes, I need to change my AtCoder password right now. This is pretty cringe. All right. Day 2 of streaming, going pretty well. All right, I'll try copy pasting my code. Okay, cool. Phew. All right, so here, instead of pasting my new password, I pasted some C++ code. Pretty good. um, so this should be correct, but should get time limit exceeded. Oh, I've already done a few of these problems. Interesting. I did multiplication 1 and 2. Very cool. Wait, I did multiplication 3? Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that. Good call. Wait a second. What am I doing? All right, nice. This is still running. It's like conveniently telling me that it's still getting TLE. Okay. So now let's think about whether there's a more clever way to do this. Um so so here's the trick. Um it seems like here what we want to do is when we go from I to I plus 1, the number of ways to arrange the previous stuff uh, divides by 2. So I think what we can do here is we can initialize this to that, and then we can initialize this, or we can, every time we add some number of ways to uh, make a set using one more element, that's one fewer degree of freedom that we have when picking the extra elements in between. Wait a second. Does that even help? Okay. So I think this should be correct, but it shouldn't actually be helpful. Okay, cool. So got it. Cool. So the idea here is that we don't actually care about the number of elements. We kind of just care about the number of ways to do stuff. So I believe that we can actually stop storing I completely. Yeah, so basically whenever we use man, I hate that stuff popping up. I need to disable it. But whenever we use different values of I, we are what's the best way to explain this? What are your thoughts about Nintendo canceling the Splatoon 2 tournament? Um, that's a great question. I don't know anything about it. If you'd like to enlighten me on the kind of, 2 sentence TLDR, I'd love to hear about it. I did recently hear that Nintendo issued a cease and desist canceling a big Super Smash Bros. Melee tournament, which I was disappointed to hear, since, I enjoy watching those as a Melee player myself. Do you play Ultimate or only Melee? I play Ultimate well, I play both of them only recreationally. Are you doing Advent of Code? Um, maybe. um, press I guess press 1 if you want me to do Advent of Code. Press 2 if you don't. um, but sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. So for I want you to look and see if it's interesting. All right. That actually sounds like a good compromise. I probably should just do that. Um, yeah, I guess let me quickly fix this code, submit it. Uh, then I'll do Advent of. Maybe I should figure out how to do adventofcode.com. All right, cool. So I have Advent of Code up. I'll try doing it. Um, I'll look at it, but likely won't end up doing it. Nice. Yeah, we can race to see who quits first. It starts in 45 seconds. I guess my stream is slightly delayed. Um, all right, this is like a super super clever problem actually. I'm gonna definitely want to discuss this more after Advent of Code. Maybe you ought to delay stream a little for AOC. Oh, because somebody might copy me? Oh man. I don't actually know how to delay the stream or how to figure out how to do that in the next 10 minutes or in the next 10 seconds. Yeah, I guess I have a small enough number of viewers that it's probably fine. All right. An open data port on the little screen. Let's see in front of you. Evil Cat 96, thanks for the follow. What? Oh, this is still assuming that the preamble consists of these. I was like so confused about this. Okay. Cool. After the 5-number preamble, every number is a sum. Find the first number in the list which is not the sum of 2 of the numbers before it. Okay. Cool. To begin with, get your puzzle input. Oh, how do I know how many numbers there are? Oh. Okay, there are 1,000 numbers. I mean, I think I can just go through every single, like, I think I can just go through every single possibility of the previous 25 numbers and then check to see if they're equal to the current number. All right, let's see. Great. Part 2. I must find a contiguous set of at least 2 numbers in my list which sum to the invalid number from step 1. Is it the same list? Nice work, Neil. So I guess LL So I think what we want to do here is just go through all the prefixes. No, is that even right? Oh yeah, we can just go through every single range. I forgot that n equals 1,000. um, I was thinking about like what's like the cleanest way to do this, like in linear time. um, nice. Uh, Neo, is the leaderboard already saturated, or can I still get on it? Also, this is good. It means that nobody who's copying me can get on it. Awesome. Oh, wait a second. Okay, the whole set needs to. Okay. Oh, nice. All right. Apparently, I did this wrong. Please wait 1 minute. Hmm. Oh, I see. All right. I mistakenly assumed that this list was sorted, so I could pick the first and last element to get the min and max element. Great. All right, I got 300th. I did not do linear time, but you should do linear. All right, let's see how people did on this. Neil Wu. Wow, one of my viewers was coached to getting 14th place by me. That's very nice. Um, you should do linear. Yeah. I mean, so I guess like the way to do linear here would be to like have a map of like sums to their indices, and then when you loop through stuff, you find the necessary prefix sum that you want to subtract off of it by taking or your prefix sum minus v. The top guy is Nick, right? Uh, where's the leaderboard? Well, so on day 9, the top guy is not Nick, but that's n log n. But yeah. Oh, right, because I'm using map instead of like hash or like unordered map. Um, yeah. It's also still n squared actually because I still do this, but oh wait, no, never mind. This is constant because it's 25 squared. Very nice. Um, yeah, this is Nick. This is the same as same username on Codeforces, other websites. Um, cool. All right. Anyway, I think as Advent of Code Problems did, that one was all right. It was like a Codeforces Div 3A or something. Let's see who asked about Advent of Code. Def Not Hacking, and Mirza 007, and Chosun 1. All right. Did any of you enjoy seeing that? Uh you missed two pointer sweep for linear. Oh, you mean like instead of using an unordered map, I could use a two pointer sweep? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's pretty nice, I guess. All right, let's close that up. Um, I don't compete and I don't remember C++, so I just tried to follow. Awesome. Yeah, I guess I can briefly discuss my my solution here. Um, wait, what? Oh, this is the leaderboard. How do I find the problems? Calendar? What is this UI? Okay. Um, so basically what I did here is uh, I check each element to see if it's possible to get from the previous 25 elements. And I do that by just looping through every single pair that could possibly add up to it. And then for this part, what I do is I consider every range from I to J, and I compute its sum using these prefix sums so that I don't have to loop through. But I could also just loop through and it would probably be fine. Um, and then I just check whether it's equal to our target value. So this is mostly an implementation problem. It's like they give you pretty specific instructions and you just have to translate them from English into your language of choice. Um, the LL declaration is actually it's a using statement in my template. It's a long. Um, it's equivalent to an int64t as well. Um, it's basically a 64-bit int instead of a um, oh, Eknerwala asks if I'm doing object-oriented C++, and the answer to that is mostly no, though I do occasionally make a struct. And I guess a lot of like my pre-written. No, yeah, no, I was just kidding around. But thanks for playing along there. Um, yes, so um, I guess Eknerwala is probably used to me coding in Java. Is that why you asked? You want to share your C++ homemade library. So it's it's only semi homemade. If you remember that show from Food Network, um, this is my library. Oh, AOC is best done in Python or a scripting. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, I actually don't even know if I have like a good Python environment set up. Um, Python or JS or something. Yeah, I guess, I'm already coding in C++ here, and I actually personally don't find it to be that. Um, I don't find it to be that much worse to use C++ or Java compared to Python. Since like if you're mostly just writing loops or simple things like that, it's like basically the same. Um, but yeah, definitely to give credit where credit is due. Um, my homemade library is in this GitHub, but it's a fork of someone else's homemade library that is actually homemade by them. So, you can feel free to check out either. um, and for stuff like LL and RE that you were asking about, those are just in template.cpp, which is like the super basic stuff that I just have for convenience for every problem that I do. Like, there's all here that gives you begin and end. so you can pass it into STL algorithm stuff. There's some like, this stuff is just, save some typing. This stuff is input output. This stuff is debugging. F0R. Okay. So you may have noticed that these are here. And the only one of these that I use is trav. See, look. I type my for loops like a, good old hardworking American. Yeah, those are in my template because they were in there when I originally copied it. And I tried using them for a while, but I found it a little bit annoying because I had to decide whether I was gonna do like a Trav saves the. Yes, I guess I like Trav just because I don't have to think about it. um, well, the thing about Trav is it gives you like a reference to the thing, and yeah, that way I don't have to remember to type the ampersand, and I also don't have to decide whether to type the ampersand each time. Um, yeah, so what F0R would be, would be something like this, would be equivalent to this loop, or this would be equivalent to this loop. But yeah, I always end up typing the actual for loop out because occasionally I want to do something like this one, or I want to do something like this. And if I don't really decide that until after I start typing, then I can't, like, having to make the decision of whether to use the macro or not at the beginning is kind of annoying. Um, and it also leads to my code looking really inconsistent because I use the macro like occasionally. So I pretty quickly switched back to just writing normal for loops. Um, yeah. I do definitely like having some things like PB that I use all the time. F and S. Let's see. These I don't really use because I use lower bound so infrequently. And I typically would only like use it like once or twice in like an entire program, if ever. So I just type it out. Um, and as I understand it, the main benefit of size is that you never forget to cast to assigned int. But yeah, still definitely kind of learning what's up. I mostly stopped using pairs. Definitely agree with that. Um, it is it is kind of nice when you're iterating over a map. Um, but I actually almost always prefer to iterate over maps like this. Or, with whatever appropriate variable names here are best. But otherwise, like, if you don't do this kind of structured binding, is there actually a way, like, what's the best way to iterate over a map without the structured binding? The only way I know is to do this, and then E is a pair. I don't like any of those. Okay, yeah, I also like the structured binding. Does the structured binding work on topcoder, by the way? I don't remember off the top of my head. I feel like it doesn't, but I just know some random stuff doesn't work on topcoder because C++11. Yeah, it does not work on topcoder. Anyways, that's advent of code. I see Aknerwala is 4th, so congratulations. Let's see if Neil is on here. Neil is top 65, so also respectable. Oh, yeah. that was so confusing. The structured binding thing. Um, yeah, this happened yesterday on my stream. So Vim, I'm using Vim with Clang for the syntax highlighting. So it complained about that, but I'm actually using GCC to compile. So I was able to compile and run stuff successfully and submit and get AC. But it did cause me a little annoyance when I was like trying to write my code. um yeah, so let me actually find the problem real quick. How to use GCC on Mac. Um I'm not sure. I just installed it. I think I might have used Homebrew to install it. Um I'm 65th. Nice. All right. Neil is flexing. All right. So yeah, all right. So Andrew, check this out. So this is a structured binding, right? And then in this lambda, it is getting captured. And like the code obviously runs because I submitted it. um, but yeah, but Clang highlighted it and said it was an error. But then when I Googled it, I found some Stack Overflow link that said Clang is correct. So I wasn't really sure what to do about that. Maybe it's something that's like technically invalid, but in practice, it's like fine. Um, cool. Anyways, yeah. So I guess we wrapped up this problem, I think. And let's switch to Advent of Code. Which region of the U.S. are you currently in? Yeah, I'm on the East Coast. I'm currently in New York City. Um, so for me, it's actually just past midnight. So I think I'll probably wrap up the stream. If anyone has any last last questions or thoughts, let me know. Um, and um, I think I'll put this recording up on YouTube. So everyone should definitely follow me here, and you should also try to subscribe to my YouTube. Def Not Hacking asks, how often do you stream? Um, so far, I've streamed once a day for 2 days. um, so I don't think that I'll continue to stream every single day, but so far it's pretty fun. So I'll probably aim to stream like at least once a week. Uh, yeah, and if you check out my Twitch, it should have. Well, so first, if you follow me, you'll get a notification. um, but oh no, I don't want to watch this. But it also has this little schedule module, and I'll try to put my next stream on this once I decide to do it. um, so in that case, you'll be able to see it there. Also, did you friend me from yesterday? Wow, actually, called out. Um, it looks like I didn't, but now I did. Um, yeah. Looks like now you're at 34. Um, but yeah, definitely like tune in the future. And also definitely let me know what kind of things you do and don't find interesting. I'm always looking for any feedback about how I could make my stream better. Um, I also have like a pretty basic stream layout here, which I think is probably fine. But if anyone has any ideas, I'm pretty new to streaming, so let me know if there's something that you recommend. For example, last time people recommended that I set up CloudBot to link to like the current problem or to answer like basic queries. Um, so yeah, I definitely like the minimalist layout too. I think for something like gaming, it's like nice to have a more complex layout, but for this, just kind of casting the whole desktop is nice because you always want to look at different things, right? Sometimes the terminal, sometimes the editor. Um, but cool. All right. So yeah, I think I'll wrap up this stream. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Definitely a lot of fun. I could get rid of the chat above my webcam. Oh yeah, so the chat I do think is super valuable because it kind of gives context on what I'm talking about, and I'm planning to upload this to YouTube later. Let me know if you want to. Yeah, I think I'll ask you about that. um, but yeah, I think the chat is good because if you want to watch the YouTube video or the stream archive later, it gives you some context. Um, cool. All right. Thanks everyone. I'm gonna tune out now.